Welcome back to another episode of Humans Are Whack. First of all, thank you to everyone who's been watching, commenting, and sharing your thoughts on the last episodes. The Humans Are Whack family keeps growing across countries, time zones, and continents, and it's honestly mind-blowing. If you're new here, welcome. This is the channel where we explore the strangest, most unbelievable, and yes, the dumbest things humans have ever done. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is in your country right now, because we love seeing how far this madness reaches. Now, on our first story for today, it's a tale of hunger, exhaustion, and criminal confusion. The burglar who broke into a home, cooked dinner, took a nap, and thanked the owner in a note. It sounds like something straight out of a bad sitcom, but it's completely real. In Ohio, a homeowner returned one evening to find something bizarre. The front door was unlocked. The kitchen smelled like bacon. And there, on the counter, was a half-eaten breakfast: eggs, sausages, and toast, next to a handwritten note. The note said, "Thanks for the meal. I was hungry. Didn't mean no harm." At first, the owner thought maybe it was a relative or a friend pulling a prank. But when they checked the security footage, it showed a total stranger. A man had broken into the house, gone straight to the fridge, cooked himself a full meal, eaten calmly, and then, apparently satisfied, took a nap on the couch. He didn't steal a thing, didn't take cash, jewelry, or electronics, just food and rest. When police found him the next day, still wearing the homeowner's blanket, he explained his reasoning in total sincerity. "I was cold and hungry. I didn't want to cause trouble. I just wanted breakfast." The officers were so confused, they almost didn't know what to charge him with. Technically, it was burglary, but he hadn't taken anything. He'd just borrowed the kitchen and the couch. The story spread across the internet, with people calling him the polite burglar. Memes flooded in. Some even said, "At least he left a note." That's manners. But here's the thing. This story is more than just funny. It's oddly human. We've all had those moments where hunger or exhaustion takes over reason. He just happened to do it in someone else's house. And it makes you wonder, was he really a criminal? Or just a very tired, very hungry man trying to survive with a little courtesy? Either way, it's one of those stories that reminds us humans are unpredictable, ridiculous, and sometimes even polite in their stupidity. In our second story for today, it's one of those moments where someone's poor decision-making meets perfect, poetic justice. And it proves, without a doubt, that sometimes karma doesn't wait long to act. The thief who tried to rob a karate school, full of black belts. Picture this. It's a quiet night in Gainesville, Florida. The streets are mostly empty, streetlights hum faintly, and inside a small martial arts dojo, a group of students are finishing up an evening training session. The air smells like sweat, liniment, and discipline, the kind of place where respect and self-control are sacred. And then, the door bursts open. A man storms in, wearing a ski mask and waving a knife. He shouts, "This is a stick-up." He demands wallets, phones, and cash. But what he didn't realize, what he really didn't realize, was that the people he just tried to rob were not your average gym goers. They were karate black belts. And not just one or two of them, a full class of them. For a moment, there's silence. The kind of silence that happens right before something incredible. Then, it's chaos. But not the kind of chaos the thief expected. Within seconds, the instructor, a 6 feet 2 inches martial arts veteran named Jeff Davis, calmly steps forward and says, "Son, you picked the wrong place." Before the man can even blink, his knife is kicked from his hand. A second student sweeps his legs out from under him. Another pins him down effortlessly. In less than 10 seconds, the so-called robber is on the ground, dazed, disarmed, and probably reconsidering every life choice he's ever made. Witnesses said he tried to mumble something like, "I didn't know this was a karate place." Yeah, he didn't know. Police arrived minutes later, only to find the man neatly restrained, sitting in the corner of the dojo with his hands zip-tied by a student, looking more embarrassed than injured. One officer reportedly joked, "We didn't even need to be here, did we?" The story went viral, and the internet had a field day. Headlines read things like, "Man robs karate school. Immediate regret ensues." People couldn't stop laughing, not just at the ridiculousness of the situation, but at the incredible timing of it all. Think about it. Out of every possible place to rob, gas stations, convenience stores, empty homes, he walked into a dojo, a literal room full of trained fighters. It's like trying to mug a police station or pickpocket Batman. But here's the fascinating part. When asked later why he chose that building, the man said he thought it was a yoga studio. He assumed people inside would be peaceful, calm, and easy to scare. Instead, he found a room full of humans capable of breaking bricks with their hands. Sometimes, stupidity really does hurt. And yet, in a weird way, it's the perfect example of what this show is all about. Humans, in their endless creativity and confidence, can make the most spectacularly bad choices imaginable. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. It was a masterclass in bad luck, bad planning, and bad awareness. The thief wanted money. Instead, he got humility and probably a few bruises as a bonus. And honestly, if there's one crime we can all laugh at guilt-free, it's the guy who tried to rob a room full of black belts. In our third story for today, it's the kind of story that sounds like a bad comedy skit, except it actually happened, and it's one of the most fruitfully foolish crimes ever recorded. The man who robbed a gas station with a banana. It was a quiet afternoon in Philadelphia when a man named Dominic Addy decided it was the perfect time to pull off a robbery. He didn't have a gun. He didn't have a knife. But what he did have was a banana. And apparently, he thought that was enough. Dominic walked into a gas station wearing a gray hoodie and dark glasses. He tucked the banana into his sweatshirt pocket, shaped it to look like a pistol, and pointed it at the cashier. "Give me the money," he said, trying to sound intimidating. The cashier froze. At first glance, it did look like a gun under his sweatshirt. But as he got closer, the outline didn't quite match a real weapon. And then, the moment of truth. The banana slipped out of his hoodie. It fell to the ground. Yellow. Curved. Very obviously a fruit. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Even Dominic seemed confused, like he couldn't believe his gun had betrayed him. The cashier blinked, then said flatly, "Dude, that's a banana." And just like that, all the fear in the room evaporated. Dominic panicked, grabbed the banana, and bolted out of the store. Police later found him a few blocks away, still holding the banana, which, by the way, he had taken a bite out of while running. Because why waste a snack, right? When officers arrested him, he reportedly said, "I was hungry and broke, so I thought I'd try something creative." Creative. That's one word for it. The story spread like wildfire online. Memes popped up everywhere. Captions like "appealing attempt" and "criminal potassium deficiency" filled social media. But here's the fascinating part. Psychologists later pointed out something deeper about stories like this. Desperation often breeds irrational creativity. People who feel cornered, powerless, or hopeless sometimes come up with plans that make no sense, but in the moment, feel like genius. Dominic's banana gun wasn't just stupid. It was a glimpse into how the human brain can twist logic when stress and hunger collide. Still, no matter how you spin it, he didn't just commit a dumb crime. He committed the most potassium-powered stick-up in history. And to make things even better, the banana was entered into evidence. Yes, a literal banana was tagged, bagged, and labeled "weapon used in robbery." You can't write comedy this good. Only humans can. So the next time you hear someone say, "Don't slip up," just remember Dominic, the man who tried to rob a gas station with a piece of fruit. In our fourth story for today, it's a tale of poor planning, digital ignorance, and one of the most embarrassingly modern crimes ever attempted. The man who tried to fake his death using Photoshop and forgot to edit the photo watermark. Some people fake their own death to escape debt. Some do it to run from relationships. And others just want attention. Meet Alan R., a man from the UK who decided that the best way to avoid facing fraud charges was to pretend he was dead. It started when authorities began investigating Alan for insurance scams and credit fraud. Instead of facing court, he came up with a genius idea. If everyone thought he was gone, no one could arrest him. So Alan opened his laptop and got to work launching Photoshop. His master plan? To create a fake death certificate. But this wasn't the work of a professional forger or a clever hacker. No, this was a man using a free trial of Photoshop he barely understood. He found a sample death certificate online, changed the name to his, and added random details. Everything looked almost believable until investigators zoomed in. At the bottom of the document, there it was, a clear, bold watermark that read, "Created with Adobe Photoshop Trial Version." That tiny detail single-handedly destroyed his entire plan. When confronted, Alan insisted it was a clerical error. But investigators later found more evidence on his computer, including half-edited templates named things like death_final_lithosone, JPG. The police report even mentioned that the man had emailed his own fake certificate to a friend, writing, "Does this look real enough?" And when the friend replied, "You left the watermark on," Alan simply wrote back, "No one will notice." Spoiler, they noticed. Within days, Alan was arrested and became an instant internet legend. The man who faked his death but forgot the watermark. His story quickly went viral on social media and Reddit threads dedicated to dumbest criminals ever. Some called him the ghost of bad Photoshop. Others said he should have just taken the L and faced his charges. But underneath the comedy, it reveals something deeply human. Our weird, stubborn belief that we can outsmart the system, even when we're in way over our heads. Alan wanted a new life. Instead, he got a new nickname, Watermark Man. It's poetic in a way. He tried to disappear, and instead, left his signature behind. In our fifth story for today, it's a story that starts like a routine police call and ends as one of the most unintentionally hilarious confessions in crime history. The woman who called the police to complain her drug dealer sold her bad meth. In 2018, a woman from Florida, because of course it's Florida, picked up her phone and dialed 911. Her voice was panicked, emotional, and dead serious. "Officer," she said, "I think I've been scammed. My drug dealer sold me bad meth." The dispatcher froze, then asked her to repeat. She did, slowly, clearly. She wanted justice, not for being caught, but because her illegal drugs weren't up to standard. Her name was Jennifer Hall, and she had just made one of the most unintentionally self-incriminating calls in U.S. history. She told officers she'd purchased meth from a man outside a gas station, took it home, smoked some, and didn't feel the usual high. So, in her mind, the logical next step wasn't to move on or rethink her life choices. It was to call law enforcement to demand they test the product for quality control. Police officers, trying to keep a straight face, actually responded. They arrived at her house, where Jennifer eagerly showed them the bag of meth and explained how unfair it was that dealers could get away with selling bad product. The officers calmly took the substance, ran a quick test, and confirmed it was, in fact, real methamphetamine, just weaker than usual. At that point, they had no choice but to arrest her. Jennifer was stunned. She genuinely believed the police would arrest the dealer, not her. When her mugshot hit the internet, she became a global meme overnight. Headlines read things like, "Florida woman calls cops over poor quality drugs. Customer service gone criminally wrong." But here's the strangest part. This isn't the only time it's happened. Police departments across the U.S. have reported multiple similar cases. People calling in, complaining about the potency of drugs, asking for lab tests, or even refunds. It's a weirdly honest moment in human psychology. When people get so used to systems of customer service, return policies, warranties, quality guarantees, they start applying them to everything, even crime. Jennifer wasn't trying to be funny. She was trying to be fair. And that's what makes this story so perfectly, tragically whack. Because somewhere in her mind, she wasn't a criminal. She was a customer. And that's the scariest part of all. In our sixth story for today, it's the kind of crime that makes detectives question reality. Because the evidence wasn't just easy to find, it was literally handed to them by the criminal himself. The bank robber who wrote his demand note on the back of his own paycheck. This story takes us to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where a man named Albert Spence decided one afternoon that robbing a bank was the best way to make quick money. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't have a getaway plan. He didn't even have a weapon. But he did have a plan, or at least what he thought was one. Albert walked into the PNC bank, approached the teller, and slid over a note that said, "Put the money in the bag. I have a gun." The teller looked nervous but followed protocol, slowly filling a small bag with cash. Albert snatched it up and ran out, thinking he'd just pulled off the perfect heist. But as soon as the police arrived and collected the note, one officer flipped it over, and what they saw instantly solved the case. On the back of the note was Albert's full name, address, and employer information, printed neatly at the top of a paycheck stub. It wasn't a copy. It wasn't fake. It was his real paycheck from the previous week. You can imagine the silence that followed. The officer holding it reportedly said, "Well, that was fast." Within minutes, police were already waiting at the address listed on the check. Albert was found hiding in his apartment, the same one printed right there on the back of his demand note. He was arrested without incident and, during questioning, tried to claim he didn't realize his note had writing on the other side. But that excuse didn't help much, considering his fingerprints were on the paper and the stolen cash was still in his kitchen. The case made national news, and headlines quickly rolled in. The world's most helpful bank robber. He literally gave police his address. Crime pays. If you leave a pay stub. Now, what's fascinating about this story is the psychology behind it. Studies on impulsive crimes show that in high-stress moments, especially crimes of desperation, the human brain often tunes out obvious details. Tunnel vision sets in. People become hyper-focused on one goal, in Albert's case, get money, and ignore everything else. It's why so many dumb crimes happen. People don't stop to think. And that's exactly what makes this story both hilarious and a little tragic. Albert wasn't some master criminal. He was just a man who wanted money fast and forgot that logic still applies during a robbery. He ended up getting sentenced to several years in prison, and his story became a training example in criminal psychology classes, a perfect demonstration of self-incriminating stupidity. So the next time you think you're having a bad day, just remember, at least you didn't rob a bank using your own paycheck as the evidence. In our seventh story for today, it's one of those stories that makes you wonder, did this guy actually forget what he just did 5 minutes earlier, or was he just that confident in his charm? The man who robbed a store then came back to ask the clerk out on a date. This one happened in Connecticut, and it starts like a typical small-time robbery. Late one evening, a man named Justin Mills walked into a convenience store wearing a hoodie, looking jittery and nervous. He wandered around for a few minutes, pretending to browse, before approaching the counter. He pointed at the register and told the young woman behind it, a 28-year-old clerk named Amy, to hand over the money. No mask, no weapon, just words, adrenaline, and a terrible plan. Amy, visibly frightened, did as she was told. Justin grabbed a few $100s, stuffed it into his pocket, and ran out of the store. End of story, right? Not quite, because about an hour later, he came back. Same store, same clerk, but this time, no mask, no threats, no robbery. He walked in smiling, leaned on the counter, and said, "Hey, I just wanted to say you're really pretty. Would you maybe want to go out sometime?" Amy was speechless. She looked at him like he'd just stepped out of an alternate dimension, which, in a way, He had. She quietly nodded, pretending to be calm, while pressing the silent alarm button under the counter. Within minutes, police arrived and arrested him. Right there, still trying to flirt. When questioned later, Justin reportedly said, "I know I messed up earlier, but I thought we had a connection." He genuinely believed his romantic gesture might somehow erase the fact that he had just robbed her. It didn't. He was charged with robbery and harassment. And during court proceedings, the judge even asked him, "What made you think coming back was a good idea?" Justin replied, "I didn't want to leave things awkward." Awkward doesn't even begin to cover it. But as ridiculous as this sounds, it's another fascinating look into human psychology. In high-emotion situations, fear, guilt, or infatuation, logic tends to evaporate. Some people try to fix their wrongs emotionally instead of rationally, and in Justin's case, his brain confused remorse with romance. The story quickly went viral, especially after the security footage leaked. Comments flooded in online, some calling it the boldest date request ever, others labeling it romantic stupidity at its finest. Amy later said she wasn't angry, just baffled. "He didn't scare me as much the second time," she said. "He was polite, just incredibly dumb." So what's the moral here? Maybe that timing is everything. And if you're going to ask someone out, try doing it before you rob them. In our 8th story for today, it's a story that perfectly captures the phrase, "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." A man tried to commit a simple robbery and ended up literally locking himself into his own downfall. The thief who got trapped inside the store he was robbing because he forgot the exit locked automatically. This bizarre event unfolded in the quiet town of Springfield, Massachusetts, when a would-be thief decided to rob a small convenience store after hours. It was late. The store had closed just minutes before, but the thief noticed that one of the employees was still cleaning inside. He thought, "Perfect. I'll sneak in, grab the cash, and get out before anyone notices." So he waited until the worker stepped into the back room, then slipped through the half-open door, his hoodie pulled tight. He went straight for the counter, jumped over it, and started prying open the register. The drawer popped open with a click. He stuffed the bills into his jacket, chuckling to himself, thinking he'd just nailed the perfect heist. Then came the sound. A click. He froze. The employee had finished up and, unaware anyone else was inside, had just locked the front door automatically and left through the back, the only key in his pocket. The thief walked to the door, turned the handle, and nothing. Locked. He tried again. Still locked. He looked around for another way out. Windows, vents, anything. But the security system had metal shutters covering every exit. He was trapped. For almost 5 hours. Cameras caught everything. Him pacing back and forth, banging on the glass, trying to pry open the locks with a screwdriver, even sitting down at one point to eat a bag of chips from the snack aisle, while waiting for morning to come. At around 6 a.m., the store owner arrived to open up, only to find the thief asleep on the floor behind the counter, surrounded by empty snack wrappers and a half-drunk bottle of soda. Police later joked in their report that the suspect appeared well-fed and well-rested at the time of arrest. When asked why he didn't try to call someone or break a window, the thief said, "I didn't want to cause more damage and get into more trouble." The irony, of course, is that he was already surrounded by evidence. Fingerprints on every surface, clear video footage, and the stolen cash still in his pocket. The story blew up online, earning him the nickname the overnight robber, with comments like, "He served his own sentence before the cops even showed up," and "Imagine breaking into jail by accident." But if you strip away the comedy, it's a perfect snapshot of human error, how even the best laid, or worst laid, plans crumble when reality doesn't match imagination. He thought he was outsmarting the system. Instead, the system outsmarted him automatically. So maybe the real lesson here is simple. If you're planning a crime, at least learn how doors work. In our 9th story for today, it's a case that perfectly sums up how not to be a hacker, because this guy didn't just get caught. he practically introduced himself to the FBI. The hacker who bragged online about breaching government systems, using his real name and profile picture. Meet Ethan Rowe, a self-proclaimed cyber genius from Ohio who wanted to make a name for himself in the world of hacking. He was young, overconfident, and desperate for recognition. So when he managed to breach a few low-level US government databases, stealing employee emails and login details, he thought he'd just done something revolutionary. Instead of staying quiet, like any remotely smart hacker would, Ethan did what far too many people do in the digital age. He logged into Twitter, and then, using his real name and real face, he posted this. Just broke into a federal server. Easiest hack of my life. Y'all should hire me. He even added a little smiling face with sunglasses emoji. Within hours, the post went viral, not among fellow hackers, but among cybersecurity experts, journalists, and, of course, law enforcement. The FBI didn't need to trace his IP. He'd already listed his city, tagged his friends, and had photos of his gaming setup in the background of his posts. It was digital self-destruction. When agents arrived at his house 2 days later, Ethan reportedly said, "How'd you find me so fast?" The lead agent apparently replied, "You posted your face next to the evidence." During the investigation, it turned out he hadn't even accessed anything classified, just a public testing server with outdated security. But because it was a federal system, he still faced serious charges for unauthorized access. What made it worse was his attempt to defend himself in court. Ethan claimed it was a white hat test, meaning he was trying to help the government find weaknesses. But prosecutors quickly pointed out that white hat hackers usually tweet about their crimes with hashtags like #HackTheGov and #HireMeFBI. He ended up sentenced to probation and mandatory cybersecurity education, essentially being forced to learn how not to hack again. The internet, of course, had a field day. Comments poured in. The hacker who hacked his own career. When your ego is stronger than your firewall. Man logs into jail. But beneath the jokes, there's a truth here. Ethan's story is a mirror of our era, where the hunger for validation often outweighs common sense. He didn't want to break the law as much as he wanted to be seen doing it. And that's the real danger of digital pride. It leaves a trail even the best firewalls can hide. So in the end, Ethan didn't get fame for his skills. He got fame for being the world's most self-incriminating hacker. In our 10th story for today, it's the kind of story that makes you pause, laugh, and then question if humanity truly understands irony at all. The criminal who escaped from prison applied for a job at the same place and got caught during the interview. This bizarre story comes from the UK, where a man named Gareth Smith managed to pull off something few inmates ever do. He escaped from prison. Now, for a brief moment, he was free. He could have disappeared, started fresh, lived quietly under the radar. But Gareth wasn't exactly a strategist. A few weeks after escaping, he decided to go straight and find honest work, which sounds great in theory. Except, of all the places he could apply, he chose the exact same prison he had escaped from. Yes, the same facility. He noticed a job posting for a maintenance position, saw the pay, and thought, perfect, I already know the layout. So he filled out the application, using his real name, real address, and real phone number. He even attached a cover letter describing his previous experience in prison environments. Technically true. When the application hit HR, staff immediately flagged it. Not because they recognized his name at first, but because of how oddly specific his experience section was. Under skills, he'd written, knowledge of facility security and inmate routines. It only took a few clicks in their system for them to realize, wait, this guy isn't a former employee. He's a missing prisoner. The authorities set up an interview. And unbelievably, Gareth showed up, on time, clean-shaven, and dressed for success. He even brought a printed resume. During the interview, he reportedly said, I feel I could really contribute to keeping the place running smoothly. Moments later, Officers walked in and placed him under arrest. The interviewers said he looked genuinely shocked, as if he couldn't believe they'd figured it out. When asked why he applied there, Gareth explained, "I thought since I know the place, I'd fit right in." And, well, he wasn't wrong. He was returned to the same cell he had escaped from, now with additional years added to his sentence. The story spread online like wildfire. Memes everywhere. Man reapplies for his old room. When HR calls you back to your old job, literally. Escape velocity, 0. But beyond the laughs, there's something strangely poetic about it. Gareth wanted to turn his life around, but couldn't escape the one thing holding him back, himself. And maybe that's what makes this story so perfectly whack. Because no matter how far you run, if you don't change what's inside your head, you'll always end up right back where you started. On our 11th and final story for today, it's the kind of crime that makes detectives shake their heads, reporters laugh uncontrollably, and the internet collectively go, "No way that really happened?" The man who stole a car, then reported it stolen when someone else took it from him. This might just be one of the most spectacularly dumb cases of irony in criminal history. It happened in the U.S., where a man named Jerry Thompson decided to steal a car one late night. He spotted an unlocked vehicle idling outside a gas station, keys still in the ignition, and thought, jackpot. He hopped in, drove off, and for a brief moment, he was on top of the world. No plan, no destination, just him and someone else's car cruising through the city. But here's where karma and sheer stupidity teamed up. A few hours later, Jerry stopped at a convenience store to grab something to eat. He left the car running again, went inside, and, well, you can guess what happened next. Another opportunist, someone just as reckless as him, saw the car, jumped in, and drove off. So now, the stolen car thief had his stolen car stolen. And here's the part that sent police into fits of disbelief. Jerry actually called 911 to report it. Yes, he called the cops. He told dispatch, "Someone stole my car." When officers arrived and asked for details, he gave a full, confident description, make, model, color, even the exact spot it was taken from. Everything checked out, except one detail: the car wasn't his. When police ran the plates, they discovered the vehicle had already been reported stolen earlier that day by its actual owner. Jerry tried to backpedal, saying, I borrowed it from a friend." But his story fell apart faster than his luck. He was arrested right there for grand theft auto and filing a false police report. When reporters asked the police chief about it, he said, "In my 20 years on the job, I've seen dumb crimes, but this one's art." The story quickly went viral, and internet commenters had a field day. Plot twist of the year. The circle of theft is complete. Instant karma, deluxe edition. And honestly, it's hard not to laugh, but it's also a strange reflection of how humans think. We want justice, even when we're the ones breaking the law. Jerry thought he was the victim, completely ignoring the fact that he was the one who started the chain reaction. It's human absurdity at its finest. A thief calling the cops on a thief. A criminal demanding fairness. And that's exactly why humans are whack. And that wraps up today's episode of Humans Are Whack, where every story reminds us just how far common sense can wander off before someone notices it's missing. From fake kidnappings to thieves reporting their own crimes, it's hard to believe these stories actually happened. But that's what makes humans endlessly fascinating and unbelievably whack. Now, before we sign off, I want to hear from you. Speech balloon, tell us in the comments. Which story today blew your mind the most? Was it the hacker who exposed himself online? Or the car thief who called the cops on his own karma? And while you're at it, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. It's always wild seeing how far this Humans Are Whack family stretches across the world, from night owls to early risers, all tuning in to laugh, cringe, and wonder what humanity is even doing. If you're new here, welcome to the madness. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your family and friends, because someone out there needs to see just how ridiculous we can be. And trust me, you don't want to miss the next episode. We've got stories so absurd, they make today's look almost reasonable. Until next time, stay curious, stay entertained, and never forget, humans are whack.